Okay, so in the High Council Oracle and Tarot deck, we see the Temperance card with Miss Cretita Dean, the governess, in front of what looks like the ocean or the sea. And her arms are upheld, and you can see some birds flying in the sky. And it seems as if she is internally balancing her energy. That's what it feels like to me when I look at this card. What's written here is careful, considerate with love, going to extremes for love, which I believe would be in the reverse interpretation, diligent with money. It also has for the reverse short-term happiness, and it has impatience. So you still see the themes here of Sagittarius, I feel like, with some of the colors on this card, especially where it says diligent with money, that's in orange at the bottom. I feel like the birds are bringing in that angelic energy here, and the yellow in the sky, and that kind of a golden hue that's going on in this particular Temperance card. What I do appreciate for the reversals of the interpretations and the upright is that it says being diligent with money, because it grounds that energy. So when you think about the other image from the Morgan Grier deck where there's one foot on the ground, money is a resource and is an earth resource that we need. And it is about you do have to balance your income and your finances. And there is no separation with that. Some people think that bringing money into spirituality is wrong, and I'm not one of those. And I feel like for impatience to also be a part of the reversal of the interpretation with Temperance here is also important, because if you think about the process of alchemizing or blending energies in order to bring balance from two extremes, if you're impatient, you can cause combustion or an explosion where there doesn't even have to be one or doesn't need to be one, right? So think about chemistry when you think about alchemistry, you know what I mean? Yeah, I really see the fullness of the interpretation from both decks is what I'm really choosing to say here. We have nature in the background of both cards. You see that the fire, because she is contemplating from within, that would be the fire of the spirit from the High Council Oracle and Tarot deck. And then they both have the element of water being represented. So in the Morgan Grier deck, the fire is represented by the triangle and the process, like the fiery process of blending and mixing here. And then you see it as an internal process on the High Council Oracle and Tarot deck. All right. So the next card we had is the Devil. The Devil is actually another one of my favorite cards in the deck, because not only is there a straightforward interpretation for the Devil card, I feel like there's also an overlooked aspect of the Devil card that I don't see a lot of readers get into or bring up in certain readings. But the Devil card is the number 15 in the deck. And in the Morgan Grier deck, it's represented by this figure and the inverted star. There's a green candle. And then we have the colors red and black showing up on the card again. Now, the zodiac sign associated with the Devil is Capricorn. A lot of people like to interpret that as the shadow side of Capricorn. The ability to be very cruel, very mean, and then taking the goat and inverting that energy into something nefarious. Okay. In the Morgan Grier deck, they use the colors of green, black, and red to represent that same type of nefarious force. And they even have a fly, I believe, here in the middle of the inverted pentagram to show that this is, in this deck, a warning card. This comes off as a warning, right? However, in the traditional Devil card, it brings us back to the Lovers, and the Lovers are in chains, and these chains are attached to a cube at the bottom of the throne of where the Devil is sitting in the image, and the cube is a representation of Saturn. We know Saturn rules Capricorn, but it brings us back to the Lovers because the chains that are around the Lovers in that image are loose. So whereas at first glance it looks like they have these strong attachments to things like addictions or lust or gambling or any of the things that are that I'll just say keep you stuck in your hedonistic ways as a human being, are being are being brought up to examine when the devil card shows up in the traditional Rider-Waite interpretation. However, the chains are loose and they can slip them off at any time, which brings us back to the power of choice. So I want to say, on the one hand, while the devil can also represent a person who is coming in to play this role in this character and this figure, it's also a reminder of your power to choose. And remember that one of the original interpretations of the Lover's card is higher decision making, a higher level of choosing. So I feel like that's important to bring up with the devil card too. But in the Morgan Grier deck, I do feel like this comes off more as like a warning card than anything else, especially with the flies here. Like, I understand that some people are like, oh, all of the animals, God created all of the animals and every creature here is necessary. I know another saying about flies that has to do with being despised. And anytime I encounter flies, it feels like pay attention, and sometimes like a warning. So just going based off of the symbology, and this is definitely a warning to me in this deck. So in the High Council Oracle in Tarot deck, you see that there are, so this is the upright position, right? But if I turn this card to the side, and if you can see, there are people standing back here. And these people standing back here look like they come from an era roughly around the late 50s to 60s in America, who are probably Caucasian. But when you turn the card this way, you can see that there are, you can interpret and read the words that are on here. All right. And this image that she has used for these figures standing in the background reminds me of mobs that would stand around to watch Black people, melanated people being lynched, which is very devilish behavior. So very appropriate for the devil card, because that is a devilish act. And when we look at the words, or we read the words, it says shadow self, fear, temptation, seduction of materials. And it also has attachment, addiction, restriction, sexuality. But there's also releasing limited beliefs, exploring dark thoughts, detachment, freedom from restraints, and then bondage, enslavement, and feeling trapped. So all of these themes can be brought up depending on what position the card shows up in, and depending on which way the card shows up. So whether it's upright or reversed. Okay. And I think we got room for one more card, or I can start this card. The next card that follows the devil is the Tower. The Tower is about disruption and destruction, and the sudden nature of disruption and destruction because of the representation of the lightning bolt being struck, or the tower being struck by lightning. And in the Morgan Grier deck, you see that this tower has been struck by lightning, and that there are two people falling from the tower. And it also has these vast waves coming up. So there's an understanding that this is chaos, and that chaos is being presented in the reading in some way, or an abrupt change is being brought up in some way. Now, traditionally, I would say the planet that's associated with the tower would be Uranus, because Uranus is the planet of sudden change. That's how I see it. You can look up the traditional definition of what the tower represents, though, but it definitely gives me Uranus, because it's unpredictable and that energy is associated with that planet. However, I don't feel like there are Aquarian themes necessarily that go along with the Tower card. What I do feel like comes along with the Tower card is any imbalanced or chaotic nature of any of the zodiac signs. It pretty much has every element present. You have fire, air, water, and earth. The Tower being the earth, you see the flames for the fire, you see the waves for the water, and you see the clouds and the wind with this air. So that's why I would say that. The Rider-Waite deck has a similar image. It's not too far off from this one here. So hold on, because we're about to run out of time. So I'm going to go to the next video to finish wrapping up the Tower. Peace.